Back at the Michigan International Speedway, we're getting set for a 1 hour, 45-minute NASCAR Nationwide Series practice. The Nationwide Series teams don't qualify until 10:30 tomorrow morning. They practice twice, though, this afternoon.
And for all of our doom and gloom pencil pushers that said that our sport was going to be in trouble, I want you to count the cars that are here in the Nationwide Series. 51 race cars here. And you know what? As I walked through the garage here this morning, what was impressive, a good number of those cars has sponsors on the quarter panel.
And young drivers, I might add. We've got 5 drivers here, Larry, under the age of 21. And not to mention, we've got 3 that are over the age of 50.
Listen to you spitting off those stats. That's impressive.
I told you I brought my A game today. Maybe a B game, but I'm trying.
Jason Leffler in that 38 car comes in here 4th in the points. Actually finished 15th at Watkins Glen last week, and that was with a backup car because he had that final practice crash in about the same area that Sam Hornish Jr., Jeff Gordon, and that group crashed in the Sprint Cup Series race on Monday.
And it looked about the same when it was all said and done.
Larry, you mentioned, sure did. Jason Leffler, you mentioned 4th in points. Kyle Busch has a huge lead as the points leader, 212 points over 2nd place. Carl Edwards. Brad Keselowski is 3rd overall.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at Kyle Busch's numbers of the 22 races, 2 poles, 6 wins, 16 top 5s, and 19 top 10s for that 18 car, not to mention that he has led over 1,800 laps, 1,800 in the Nationwide Series.
Brian Vickers, we just talked about him in Cup practice, one of 15 drivers doing double duty. See, he's the 2003 NASCAR Nationwide Series champ.
And this is certainly one of the Nationwide Series races that it seems like a lot of the Sprint Cup Series guys run this race. It's kind of convenient for you to do it. I think it's a racetrack that you want to gather as much information as you possibly can for the Sprint Cup Series race, even though we know there's a substantial difference in the cars, and there's actually even a difference in the tires. It's the same left side tire, but it's a different right side tire. As we watched the man that was fastest in Sprint Cup Series practice, Ryan Newman, driving for JR Motorsports in this 5 car.
Again, this practice slated for 1 hour and 45 minutes. As Larry Mack said, 51 teams entered here for tomorrow's Carfax 250.
Now the thing about Ryan Newman, he has 2 Nationwide Series starts here at Bristol, and they both were very productive. Both of them took him to victory lane in 2001 and 2005. Sat on the pole at Talladega earlier in the year in the Nationwide Series. Here's Kyle Busch, the 18 car. Right now, just right out of the box, we've got 3 Toyotas to no surprise at the top of the charts. Kyle is 2nd quickest behind Brian Vickers.
And how about his streak of 10 straight finishes of either finishing 1st or 2nd? That's remarkable.
Not if you ask him, because if they weren't all wins,
he's disappointed.
He's disappointed. He really is.
No, I mean, you're right, Steve. If a guy had 10 consecutive top 5s or 10 consecutive top 10s, that's a great streak. But to have 10 consecutive top 2 finishes is unbelievable for him and that whole race team.
And I think he's missing the big picture, I think, right now when you think about the fact that that kind of consistency will not only give you an opportunity to win a lot of races, but you're going to build a pretty good-sized point lead and possibly carry you right on to the end of the year in a championship.
Question was posed to me, and I'll ask you 2 gentlemen, since you're
opinionated?
No, because you're experts.
I was questioning who you're going to ask when you said 2 gentlemen.
Why is it, the question was posed, why is it that Kyle Busch is, now relatively speaking, struggling compared on the Sprint Cup side versus the Nationwide Series side, where we just said he's got 10 straight finishes of 1st or 2nd?
You've got to lay a lot of this difference in these 2 race cars, for one thing. I mean, the competition at the Sprint Cup level, once again, is so difficult. I'm not trying to say that it's that much different down here, but it is. Let's face it. The competition here at the Nationwide Series is supposed to be different. Cars are a little easier to drive. You know, you can do some things with these cars you can't do with a Cup car. But I think the level of competition in the Sprint Cup has really stepped up, and it's spread out a little bit more than what it was a year ago. We've seen where he's not been the dominant force he was a year ago. We've seen where Carl Edwards is not as good as he was a year ago, and you've seen a couple of guys, kind of step up like David Ruderman and Joey Logano still on some wheels off the table. I think the competition is tougher at the Sprint Cup level for one thing, Steve.
When you look right now, it's very early in this hour and 45-minute practice. Actually, the top 8 cars are Sprint Cup Series drivers right now. Trevor Bayne, driving that 99 car, is the fastest non-Sprint Cup Series regular.
Brent Keselowski, a 2-time winner, getting ready to head out here at Michigan. Speed's presentation of NASCAR Nationwide Series practice for Michigan is brought to you by Nationwide Insurance, the official auto insurance provider of NASCAR. Just 8 minutes in to this NASCAR Nationwide Series practice, and we see smoke in the distance.
Like the 26 car of Michael McDowell maybe had a problem off turn 2. Just looking at the scoring monitor, I'm not even sure that he had even completed a lap. This was almost like on his first full lap that this happened.
Caution flag is out.
Just dead loose, just past the center of 1 and 2. We actually saw a couple of cars get that way in Sprint Cup Series practice. It's almost like a little bit of that started when he dipped those left side tires down below that yellow line on the apron, and that's almost what started getting that car a little bit on the free side. And as he was picking the throttle up and carrying more speed, it just came on around.
The funny thing about it, he's been driving this car for the last 3 races with a pretty good finish at Iowa at 8th, and he had a little trouble last week at Watkins Glen and finished up 27th.
I want to commend Michigan International Speedway over there where he had this problem. All that asphalt. That's what we have to have on runoff areas around racetracks. If you see it, there's not a blade of grass on the racetrack side of that fence. That big attaboy for this racetrack for having that. That kept that 26 car and that group from having to unload a backup car right now.
You're right about that, Larry.
Let's go to the garage and Wendy while we're under caution.
Thanks, Steve, and I want to give a shout out to the ARCA REMAX Series because Justin Lofton is making his series debut here in the Nationwide Garage this weekend. He's 24th on the chart right now. Of course, Justin Lofton, ARCA Series regular, currently 2nd in points in the ARCA REMAX Series. He has 3 wins this season over there. He's attempting to continue on with his success in the Nationwide Garage. And this weekend, he's using, driving for CJM, but is using his team from the ARCA REMAX Series team that he races for with Eddie Sharp Racing. So Justin Lofton hoping to start off on a good foot here in the Nationwide Garage. Justin Lofton did win here in the ARCA race 1 year ago.
Here's the thing to keep in mind, Wendy, about today's practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. We have a lot of practice, almost 2.5 hours worth. I just spoke to Kyle Busch's crew chief, Jason Radcliffe, on this 18 car, and he told me we need to keep pacing in mind. Don't attack the cars. We need to save the tires because the NASCAR Nationwide Series only allots a certain amount of tires for the teams for practice throughout the weekend. Kyle Busch sitting inside his race car right now. He says the car is a little bit loose. That's highly unlikely unlike they were having in the Cup Series. The cars tight over there, but these cars handle different around this 2-mile oval. Kyle Busch hoping to get this car a little bit better, but guys, patience is key today for these guys because there is so much practice.
But this definitely is, to me, would be the most important practice for this Nationwide Series, is because this is right in the heat of the day, and I think it's a lot closer to the conditions that they're going to be racing in. They have their final practice later on today from 5:15 to 6:15. The track's going to start cooling down. It's going to start gaining grip. This one is the one I'd be focused on as far as that race tomorrow.
Yeah, trying to get the car balanced for whatever you need there. And then, I hate to bring up something kind of bad, but don't forget when we look at Joe Gibbs' deal 1 year ago, so when Joe Gibbs' operation got hit with that real severe penalty, and those guys, as far as the crew chiefs were concerned, spent a little bit of time back at the shop.
A lot of time.
A lot of time. It wasn't good.
Eric McClure, you just saw him in the 24 car. Early in this practice, Brian Vickers is the fastest in a Toyota. He's followed by 2 more Toyotas, Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin. David Reagan and Paul Menard then 4th and 5th. in Fords, and the quickest Chevrolet right now, Jeff Burton, is 6th.
Brad Keselowski right there in the 88 car. Out on the racetrack here for the first time.
And you know what's amazing? He's having a championship type of a season in the Nationwide Series. 3rd in the points, 2 wins, a pole, 11 top 5s, and 16 top 10s. But he's 3rd in the points, 409 points behind leader Kyle Busch. That just shows you just what a phenomenal season that 18 group is actually having.
Kyle Busch had wins earlier in February at the Auto Club Speedway in Fontana, then Texas in April, Richmond in May, Nashville in June, then New Hampshire and Gateways. We see Tony Uri Sr. pops on top of the transporter for Keselowski.
And I'm going to have to ask this question because I know people back home are probably doing the same thing right now. It's like, is it fair for Kyle Busch and Carl Edwards to be over here basically taking a championship away, or an opportunity away from Brad Keselowski when they've got a full-time Sprint Cup ride?
You know, I'm going to continue to go back and repeat something that I've said probably 25 times. And Greg Pollux, who owns some Nationwide Series teams, made this point to me. Greg was a very successful Nationwide Series championship car owner with Jeff Green. And here's what Greg told me. He said, you know what? I don't have a problem racing against Matt Kenseth, Greg Biffle, Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, Mark Martin. Where it puts us up against the wall is trying to race against Roush Fenway, Richard Childress, Hendrick Motorsports. That's where we get beat. He said, you know what? If my man can't outrun Brian Vickers, Kyle Busch, Jeff Burton, Carl Edwards, I probably need another man in my race car. It's the operation we're struggling racing against.
Stay with us here at the Michigan International Speedway. Kyle Busch isn't going anywhere. He's pacing himself. You heard that, pacing himself, like us.
Yeah, just like us. Easy.
Tonight on Speed, tune in as 2 of NASCAR's brightest young stars, Joey Logano and Justin Allgaier, stop by for our ultimate Friday night house party. Don't miss NASCAR Trackside from Michigan tonight at 7. NASCAR on Speed. There's Justin Allgaier, very promising young talent.
He'll be there.
Yes, he will.
Right now, he's 11th quickest in this practice session.
No cars on racetrack.
Yep, caution out for the 2nd time today. Contact has been made over in turn 2. Don't know exactly which car it is just yet, but caution out for the 2nd time in this practice.
You can see right there, there's a safety truck coming off of turn 2, and you can see where someone has been up against the outside safer barrier.
Wasn't long ago that complete safer barrier was white. No longer to be.
And Larry, if there is one part of this racetrack, when you do the transition and when you start, not a lot of banking here, but when you get on that back straightaway, it is less than it is here on the front, and it can get you a little bit of trouble.
You know, guys, we were talking all during Sprint Cup Series practice. Let's take a look. I think we may have found who put the mark on the wall.
Oh, yeah. Not too bad.
You guys talked about how much speed you're carrying off of turn 2, and it really is the law of physics. You want that car, like you said many times, to drift on out there, but just couldn't get slowed down enough.
And we do know who that was. It didn't have a sponsor on it. That's actually Joe Nemechek, the 87 car. You see him there in the garage area. But you're right. It's almost like you I'm going to have to check that, Jeff. I don't know if that's right.
What you got to check is whether or not Mike Bliss was in that car or whether or not it was Joe Nemechek.
Yeah, both scoring monitors we have list Mike Bliss as the driver of the 87.
But you do. There's definitely not Nemechek. He's got a headset on.
We don't know if it's Mike Bliss, but
We
it's
know
not
it's not Joe
There's
Nemechek.
a lot happening down there in that garage area. But anyhow, what I was going to say, to follow up on what you were saying, Steve, is you do. You're especially in these Nationwide Series cars with that tapered spacer underneath the carburetor, and you're carrying so much momentum and speed around here, it's almost like the car just lunges against the wall and you just run out of racetrack.
Let's go back to Bob.
Brad Coleman in the 20 car down here in the garage area this week, and they've been working on the right front of this car because in the first run, that valance had been hitting the track pretty heavily, so they moved up that valance as far as it can go. Right now, they have that car fixed. Brad Coleman going to come down off the jack stands right now, but I spoke to Brad just before he got in this car, and he said, you know what, this is a big weekend. This is my first weekend where I am truly racing in front of the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series competitors. He's done a lot of standalone races. He'll run Bristol next week as well, so he knows he really wants to prove something here this weekend. So a very big weekend for young Brad Coleman inside that 20 car.
There's damage to the 87. Hard into the wall on the right side. Practice is back underway.
I think we may see something here, Steve.
Wait for it. Wait for it.
He told me this morning he's driving for Phil Parsons.
The 99 car being driven by young Trevor Bayne out of the Michael Waltrip stables. Jerry Baxter, the crew chief on that car.
Trevor's going to be in this car for a number of races in the remaining, what's left on the 2009 schedule. And remember back at ORP about a month ago, set on the pole with this 99 car. And right now, he is actually 9th quickest. And I think, as mentioned earlier, he is by far the fastest of the non-Sprint Cup regulars.
Just 18 years old.
I was hanging out around Jerry Baxter in the 99 car early this morning, just trying to see what was going on. And guess who I found down there? The former driver of the 99 car, David Rudin. And he was giving those guys a hard time because they had a brand new car for Trevor here, and they were doing this for Trevor there. He said, why don't you ever do that for me? He said, well, if you quit tearing up the other stuff that we were trying to run from time to time, we could have built you a couple of new pieces. So they were having fun. I said, why are you down there harassing these guys? He said, because I have a lot of fun with them. I think that's the one thing that I noticed, and Larry goes down there like I do. The pressure is totally different than Nationwide Garage. Those guys are still having fun racing.
Bob Dillner's always having fun. What's going on down there, Bob?
Well, I'm having fun, but the Brad Keselowski number 88 team not having fun right now. Some trouble for them. They went out on that first run. Brad reported that the engine was very flat and that it was misfiring. So they've been up under the hood of this machine. First, they checked out the carburetor. A-OK for that check. Now they are changing the spark plug wires on this machine. This is a Hendrick engine underneath here, so we've had a lot of Hendrick engine guys over here as well. They don't know if this is going to solve the problem, but that's the first step that they're going to do. They'll change those spark plug wires, head back out on the racetrack and see if it improves the performance of this engine.
You know, this is a very special racetrack for Brad Keselowski because his home is Rochester Hills, Michigan, only about 100 miles from here. And his dad, Bob, had some success here in the ARCA Series, actually won a race here.
His uncle, Ron Keselowski, as well. Raced in ARCA for many, many years.
Steve, I've been watching this battle right here between the 5 car and the 38 car. They've been going at each other pretty well. I mean, that's Ryan Newman driving for Junior Motorsports this weekend, and you see the 38 right there of Leffler. But I'm telling you right now, this last couple laps, I mean, he has been trying to figure out a way to gain on this 5 car and get a move on him because he worked him down low first couple laps, and then all of a sudden he's starting to move up the racetrack a little bit.
But what you're seeing right here is one reason you'll see some great racing on Saturday in the Nationwide Series race, Sunday in the Sprint Cup. Look at the different grooves that you can run. You can run at the bottom, you can run at the middle, and you can run at the top of this racetrack, and you can do one on one end and opposite at the other.
Well, we talked about Trevor Bayne being 18 years old, a promising young driver. Another youngster in this field is the grandson of Richard Childress. That's Austin Dillon in the 2 car. Wendy has more on Dillon.
And Austin is attempting to make his 5th nationwide start this season. In his 4 previous starts in this area, he finished 5th in the nationwide race. Now, when he raced here in Michigan in June in the ARCA REMAX Series race, he finished 2nd. So Austin has a good track record here at this racetrack so far. A fun story about Austin, of course, you guys talking about his age, how young he is. Well, on Wednesday this week, Austin Dillon will report to High Point University for freshman orientation. Gosh, it just feels like yesterday I had to do that. Well, Austin is headed to do that, and at the same time, he's trying to balance this nationwide career. and he's doing a good job so far. He has plenty on his plate. Austin is still trying to get a good feel for his race car at this time. Now, the one car who has made his way back into the garage area is driven by Reed Sorensen this weekend. He's a little bit too free. The front feels good for Reed, but he said he needs more rear grip. Now, he said he has no issues feeling a little bit tight, so they feel they can go a little bit more aggressive on that setup. And he said when he puts wheel into it, sometimes it kicks out on him. So they are making some changes before Reed makes another run. Steve?
And Wendy, there's Dave Stolen, our cameraman, handheld extraordinaire from the in-car camera. You can see Dave. Dave, wave. Dave, will you wave?
There he is. But, you know, going back to Austin Dillon as we watch David Reagan in the 6 car, the winner from Talladega back in the spring. Right now he's 4th quickest. But what I like about what Richard Childress has done for his grandson in this 2 Nationwide Series car, as well as when he runs the ARCA Camping World East, is Richard Childress throttled back to 1 full-time Nationwide Series team this year, the 29 car that Clint Boyer, Stephen Light, and Jeff Burton share. What he did, he brought Doug Randolph on board to be the crew chief for that car. He took Dan Deeringhoff, that is the championship crew chief with Clint Boyer last year, and that's who he has put with Austin Dillon. He's got a very championship veteran crew chief with this young rookie, and I think that's going to really help accelerate Austin Dillon in the Nationwide Series.
But the only problem is you see Dan right there talking to Austin is the fact that it's the other coaches that come up every now and then, AKA his dad,
Mike,
as well as his grandfather. He said the good thing about the kid, he knows how to differentiate between fact and fiction.
Too many chief cooks.
That's exactly it.
Sunday, NASCAR race day marches into Michigan. Tune in as Kenny and Jimmy tell you which drivers will make the chase cut, who will be left out. NASCAR race day built by the Home Depot. Live coverage begins Sunday, 11 Eastern in Speed HD. 30 minutes into this practice, which we anticipate running for 1 hour, 45 minutes. 47 of our 51 drivers have been on track. Brian Vickers, still the quickest. We're watching the ageless one, Morgan Shepherd.
I'm going to tell you what, I was pretty impressed with Morgan Shepherd. Now, remember, he's 67 years old at Watkins Glen. The alternator went out on that 89 car 4 laps into that race. He had to cut everything he could electrical off, including all of the blowers blowing on him and trying to keep him cool, and he nursed that thing home to a lead lap finish and finished 21st. That's pretty impressive for a man 67 years old.
It's pretty impressive for a man of any age. That's a tough deal because, you know, on a road course, you really have to work.
You're a busy man.
Yes, you are.
The thing I like about Morgan is he's here to race. He's not here to start, park, take a check, and go home. He wants to race.
Let's take a ride around this 2-mile racetrack of Reed Sorensen, going down the front straightaway. Now, the banking here is 12 degrees. Going to go off into turn 1. The banking in the corners here only 18 degrees, but when you're in that racetrack, it doesn't look nothing like 18 degrees, as you can see right here. And you heard how little bit he was out of the throttle. Picked it up way before the center. That's the reason the car lunges toward the exit of the corner against that wall.
See how much he lifts going into 3. Just a little right there.
And just picked it up well before the center of the corner. Comes up on the 14 car of Justin Lofton that Wendy was talking about a while ago.
Matter of fact, let's go back to Wendy.
And the reports from the garage area right now from a lot of these drivers is rear grip. It's needed out there. It is very slick and very hot is the reports from a lot of these drivers on the scanners, specifically from Jason Keller. He's made his way into the garage area, just explaining right now what he's feeling in that race car. The center of the corner, he tries to give it throttle. It's just lacking that rear grip. They made the spring change, which took away some of that bumpiness he was feeling. It's steady through the corner, but again, needs more rear grip. That seems to be the quote from a lot of these guys in the garage right now.
And you know what's going to be interesting is they have these 2 practices today that we've been talking about, and they qualify at 10:30 local time in the morning. We were talking in Sprint Cup, you want a late number, you want to go late in the session. But if you're in the Nationwide Series, you want to go early. And Steve, Jeff, on qualifying, we've had 17 races here. We have never had a repeat pole winner. 15 different pole sitters because qualifying was actually rained out twice.
I'm going to say Kevin Harvick in the 33 car, followed by Denny Hamlin, then Chase Miller and Brad Keselowski will be your first 4 qualifiers tomorrow morning. So, you know, Kevin can get his little hot rod going like he wants to. He's probably going to be about the best seat as far as getting optimum grip and be able to get some speed out of his race car to possibly put it on the pole. And Larry, you talking about the numbers about different pole winners. How about the fact that the last 7 races have been won by 7 different teams, 7 different drivers?
You look at Jeff Burton there, you see his name on there as a pole winner, and that was in 1998. He also won the race, and that was a caution-free race in the Nationwide Series.
Jeff Burton, one of 15 drivers doing double duty. Right now, Burton is 6th overall, and he is the fastest Chevrolet driver. 35 minutes into practice. It's Denny Hamlin in the 11 car. Scott Lagasse started the year in that car just a few weeks ago. Denny Hamlin jumped into this car. Wendy has an update on Hamlin's entry.
And again, needs more rear grip for Denny Hamlin. They did make a track bar change the last time in, and this last time out on this run, he said he's still a little bit too free when he tries to pick up the throttle. So Denny Hamlin not completely satisfied with this race car just yet.
Jeff, we know the racetrack is hot. We know it's slick. So if you're a crew chief down in that garage and your driver says, I don't have any rear grip, what do you tell him?
Well, you got to work on it, Steve. I mean, you're just going to have to get the thing again, as Larry has pointed out, and so has Bob and Wendy from pit road, the fact that, you know, they were limited on tires. That'll be the same problem you're going to run into tomorrow. When they drop this green flag, you've got what you've got. This is not going to be another one of those situations where you're going to have a lot of opportunities to work on it. So I think the guys who can work through this condition today and get their cars balanced and have some grip, when you put the fresher tires on it, it's going to be comfortable. You'll be able to hang on to it and do what you want. But you got to get it, I think, in a happy medium. You know, it's not going to be good at any point in time all the time. So it's going to be a challenge, but I think you've got to work on it in that kind of context. This is a good track condition to achieve that. I mean, Larry's already pointed out, this is what it's going to be like tomorrow. Weather's not going to change a lot. Right now, we're not fighting the weather variable of cloudy conditions and cool and washing the track clean. Your racetrack is what you're seeing is what you're going to get tomorrow. So focus on that and work on that.
Scott Wimmer in the 40 car is 28th overall.
Did I answer your question?
Yes, you did. Thank
Okay.
you very much. Let's go back to the garage. Bob has an update on the 33 car driven by Kevin Harvick.
Well, Steve, no happy medium right now for Kevin Harvick. He's 10th on the timing chart, but he is not happy with this race car. In fact, he said it's junk. It's like it's riding on top of the racetrack. So I asked the team, I said, well, is it, you know, riding on the top of the racetrack and in a 4-wheel drift? You know, is it a little tight, or is it just in the 4-wheel drift coming off a little bit loose? They said everything above. That's how bad it is. So right now they have put this car back on the scale pads here in the pit area, and they are going to put a different setup on the front end for Kevin Harvick for the next time he goes out.
And one thing I see them doing right here is looks like they're working on possibly the camber of the right front tire. And of course, negative camber, you lean the top of the tire in, that makes the car turn. If the car's free getting in, you'll actually take a little bit of that camber out. Looks like one of the adjustments they're possibly making, and they may even be changing that upper A arm to change the geometry. Looks like that may be possibly what they're doing.
Brian Vickers still the quickest in this practice. He's followed by Kyle Busch, Denny Hamlin, David Reagan, and Paul Menard.
We know for sure who Mike Lister's driving for in this series, right?
We think it's the 87.
Okay.
There's some veteran advice for 19-year-old Austin Dillon in the form of one Jeff Burton.
Well, I'd say Jeff Burton knows how to get around this place. He's had a lot of success. Right now, Jeff is 6th quickest, and Austin Dillon, his teammate, is 34th quickest.
It's one of our trackside guests. We're on board actually now with Justin Allgaier. He's been very impressive this season. Comes in here 5th in points. Finished 17th at Watkins Glen on Saturday. Nine top 10 finishes.
You know, he only has 2 DNFs this year, and unfortunately they were 2 of the restrictor plate races, at Daytona back in February and then at Talladega back in the spring. The Nationwide Series, they have no more restrictor plate races. They do not go back to Talladega with the Sprint Cup cars in the fall.
And I'm glad you brought that up. We'll take a look at John West Townley. This is the first time these guys have been to this racetrack this year. So people might wonder, why aren't they having notes to fall back on? It's because they haven't raced here yet. The trucks normally run the spring race, and these guys run the second race.
And I think that's a lot why you mentioned a while ago 7 races, 7 different winners. Things change so much from one year to the next. The racetrack changes, the rules change, the car changes, the tire changes, and it's just hard for somebody to really get their arms around coming back and repeating winning a race here.
Boris said was in that 09 car at Watkins Glen. John West Townley getting a little tutelage.
And it was announced that Boris will be in this car at Montreal in 2 weeks, the second road course race that these guys go to. There you see Brad Parrott, the crew chief, and on top of the grandstand, kind of as a driver, coach, and spotter for John West Townley, is the 1994 Nationwide Series champion, David Green. I saw David and John West Townley really in deep conversation earlier this morning. He has a start here in the ARCA Series last year, qualified 8th and finished 13th.
Well, Larry, a few moments ago, we saw Jeff Burton. Speaking of tutelage, tutoring Austin Dillon. Understand Bob has a report on that.
Well, let's talk to Jeff Burton about there. I saw you go over to Austin Dillon, of course, your teammate here in the Nationwide Series. What were you talking to him about?
Just about what his car was doing and what my car was doing. We made some changes on my car that really helped it, and so I wanted to let him know what we did. And then this is his, I believe this is his first time here with the Nationwide car, so just talking a little bit about, you know, lines and throttles, and it's hard because you watch television and you hear everybody talking about running wide open, but nobody's running wide open today. And you know, so it's real hard to watch TV and then come here without racing. So he's an incredibly smart young man, and he takes his, what I like about him, he takes his time. And by the end of the weekend, he'll be running well, but he never gets it over his head, and he's a lot of fun to work with.
How's your car right now?
I'm sorry.
How's your car right now?
Hyundai and Chevrolet is pretty good. We need to be a little better for sure, but we're not. We're in the ball game. We're certainly in the ball game. I think we're 6th fastest on the board, and our lap time on old tires looks pretty good. So I'm pretty happy.
By the way, that was Austin Dillon revving his motor as he went by the interview with Jeff Burton, so that was kind of quinky-dink right there. But right now, a camber change on the 29 car for Jeff Burton.
With Clint Boyer's name,
For the rest of the year.
For the rest of the year, Jeff lost a competition.
Is that a coinkydink?
No.
Toodaloo. Rev up your night with Big Block Thursday on Speed. First at 8, Pink's All Out heats up the Heartland at Indy. Then at 9, the Wolfpack chases a wanted drug dealer on Jack. Then on Wrecked at 10, Bad Luck strikes O'Hare, sending the crew into panic mode. Big Block Thursday begins Thursday at 8 p.m. Eastern, only on Speed.
That's how we do it.
That's it. Be there.
On board with Greg Biffle, 45 minutes into practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams. He looks pretty laid back in that car.
He looks very laid back and very comfortable in the 16 car. Now, Greg is actually the track record holder here that he set back 2 years ago in August 2007 at a 38.59. I believe with the heat and the lack of grip that track record will be very safe even in the morning.
Oh yeah, I don't think there'll be any danger of that. And we're riding along here now watching the number 2 car of Austin Dillon, and the changes they made, he must not have liked them.
He's run 18 laps, but actually we were just riding with Greg Biffle. He's run the most laps of anyone, 22 laps, that 16 car.
Back to Bob Dillner.
Want to update you on the engine situation with the 88. Brad Keselowski still reporting that the engine is flat. He said, you know, guys, it's really not misfiring. It's just flat. I feel like I don't have any power. Well, they changed the plugs. They changed the wires on that car. still the same thing. They sent him back out on the racetrack right now, and I talked to the team, and they said, you know what? Maybe, just maybe, he's used to that cup power. Maybe that's what happens when he runs the cup car first and then comes over here to the Nationwide Series, because the cup car has got so much more power, because they've tried everything and they can't figure out why the 88 engine would be flat.
Well, it's a two-edged sword. I talked to Brad the last time he ran the 25 Cup car at Chicagoland Speedway, and he said, Larry, I struggle so much getting that Cup car qualified after I have been in this Nationwide Series car for a practice session. And that's what he's going to have to go through today, because he's practiced the Cup car, he's now in this Nationwide car, and then he'll have to qualify that Cup car. And of course, he's a car that will have to qualify on time. There you see his crew chief, Tony Uri Sr. pops. But I just want to give a thumbs up to Brad Keselowski, because the drivers in NASCAR, whether it's Sprint Cup, Nationwide, or the Camping World Truck Series, they just continue to show what a class act they are. As we mentioned earlier in Sprint Cup practice, we're here close to the Motor City, Detroit, and we know that we have a lot of local laid-off auto workers. So what Brad has done, he has invited and he is providing transportation for a lot of those auto workers that are laid off to come here to the Nationwide Series race tomorrow. And the good people here at Michigan International Speedway, they are providing the tickets for those gentlemen and ladies.
Yeah, that's a great move, because manufacturing jobs have been hit hard in this recession. J.J. Yaley's back. Good to see him in the 81 car this week.
Yes, it is. And right now, he's having a pretty good run here in that first practice session. He's 16th quickest.
And J.J. actually has a pole here. It's in the Sprint Cup Series. He sat on the pole when he drove the Joe Gibbs car, the 18 car. Sat on the pole here in June of 2007. But it is good to see J.J. back at the racetrack.
Yeah, I know he's been working very diligently trying to secure sponsorship to get back in something, whether it's a Camping World Truck or whether it's a Nationwide car, trying to make his way back to Sprint Cup.
And we mentioned we have 51 cars here. Michael McDowell, who spun out right at the beginning of this practice, he is the 48th car that's been out there. So we actually have 3 cars that's not practiced so far, as this practice session still has quite a ways to go.
A little over an hour left in this practice. Carl Edwards in the 60 car. He is 8th overall right now, 4th fastest of the Fords.
Sat on the pole and won this race here 1 year ago. Had a good run at Watkins Glen last week as he continues to try to reel in Kyle Busch to not a lot of avail, but finished 3rd, 2nd in the points with 5 poles and 2 wins in 2009.
You know, Larry, he was 3rd here a year ago as far as points, and over 180 points behind eventual winner Clint Boyer, and he just about ran him down in the remaining number of races. So it's a long ways from being over for sure. And Bob, what do you think about all that? And we still got a lot of racing to go here in the Nationwide Series.
I don't know if Kyle Busch keeps it up. I don't know if he's going to be able to be beat here in the Nationwide Series, but Carl Edwards is certainly trying. Right now he's reporting with his number 60. It's kind of really tight, and what I've done is kind of looked at Carl, talked to him a little bit, and watched his hand gestures to his crew chief. He says it's really tight. You can see him really try to, crank on the wheel, and then he'll go back to the right-hand side like it whips loose coming up off. So that's what the 60 car is dealing with so far in this practice, guys.
He just runs so fast around this place. It's one end or the other is not going to grip.
You saw Ryan Newman in his race car. He's 11th quickest in this practice. Wednesday night, the modifieds go to Bristol Motor Speedway. Just read the other day that the Cup race is sold out at Bristol. You can get a ticket to see great racing, modified series, and then the Camping World Truck Series.
That man right there, Ryan Newman, will be competing in every single race up there, all 4 races.
How impressive would it be if he could make the sweep?
Look at that hat Brad Keselowski has
Big
on.
blue, big blue.
He was
Michigan
up there
Wolverines.
at their practice session yesterday.
What do you think he'd have up here? An Alabama hat on?
If he had any sense, he would.
Claire?
Steve Wallace in the 66 car. He is 14th overall in his Chevrolet.
Steve, you can tell that football season's coming.
Oh, it's
He's
here.
getting uppity over here. You know that?
Bear Brian.
National
They head
rankings
to
come out.
Talladega right there in the middle of the fall. It just doesn't get any better than that.
Yeah, you gonna be wearing that Gator outfit anymore any of the time this year?
No.
Huh?
I might wear my houndstooth hat, but I won't be wearing a Gator uniform. You know, as we're riding with Stephen Wallace around this 2-mile racetrack right now, he's 14th quickest. Even though he continues the quest to get to victory lane for the first time in the Nationwide Series, pretty impressed. He's sitting 6th in the Nationwide Series points right now.
Well, when you look at it overall, I mean, Rusty Wallace Racing is doing really good. I mean, Brendan Gaughan right there, he's 9th. I mean, they've had some good runs this year. So, and considering all the things that they're going through there, now partnered up with Kevin Harvick, maybe they're starting to get a few more things from Kevin's organization because we know how strong they are. You know, these guys could break through any moment.
Hey, you know, Jeff, you guys have said this for years. Steve has 3 top 5 finishes. And in this sport, it's all about putting yourself into position to win. And if you're in the top 5, in my book, you're in position to win.
And that's what it's all about. I mean, each and every week as a crew chief, we go out trying to find that opportunity to be able to put that car and give that driver, you know, his chance to go to victory lane. And that being in the top 5 every week, that's the key.
Larry said Stephen's 6th in points. Coming in this race at Michigan. His dad, Rusty, has been a victory lane a time or two here at Michigan International.
Of all the wins Rusty had, he said was one of the most special wins that he got here, and I don't remember the year, but it's when he beat Dale Earnhardt here at this 2-mile racetrack. Of course, I think Dale ended up with 2 wins here, Dale Earnhardt Sr. Gonna ride with Justin Allgaier. Take a look at him sitting in that seat. Tell you what, I think this little old kid is sitting right there on the brink of getting to victory lane. You know, it has been a long time since a Dodge went to victory lane in the Nationwide Series.
Allgaier in the 12 car, 12th overall. In this practice.
You know, they brought Chad Walters over there from Hendrick Motorsports to work with him this year. Veteran winning crew chief in the Nationwide Series, and I think they have really complemented each other this year.
Allgaier was 17th at Watkins Glen.
I think the key thing right now, he looks like he's holding a pretty wheel as far as around this racetrack, not really having to fight the car, very smooth with the throttle. And I think really what you're looking at here, and again, this is a quote from Chad Walters, the crew chief on there, is how important horsepower is. And the way you maximize horsepower in the Nationwide Series, get the car to handle so you can stay in that throttle, keep those butterflies open to get it going, because again, we talk about the restrictor plate, not restrictor plate, restricted
the
tapered spacer that restricts the horsepower, how it can affect these cars. And so you want to keep that airflow open as much as possible to maximize the horsepower. And right now, it looks like that 12 car is working pretty well.
Yeah, when you take into consideration the tapered spacer, that kind of directionally works like a restrictor plate. It restricts the airflow like Jeff's talking about. The smaller carburetor, the 390 CFM carburetor, these cars are down about 170 to 190 horsepower from the Sprint Cup Series cars. They have a 15-point higher gear here. The Sprint Cups run a 375. These cars have a 360. The RPM is not going to be near up there. But, you know, Mark Martin has always said one reason he felt like he was always successful driving the IROC cars is because of his understanding of how you have to race the Nationwide Series cars. You have to stay in the throttle because they're a momentum type of a race car.
Well, the only driver under 40 seconds, Brian Vickers. There he is in the 32 car. Bob has an update.
Happy, happy, happy are the 32 bunch down here in the pit area. You see crew chief Trent Owens on top of their rig watching this car, which should be their final run of this practice session. Very happy with the balance on this car. They just put different shocks on the front end of this machine just to try something, but you can see Brian has been talking about how that car is bouncing in the front end, and you saw it in the middle of that corner right there. The only thing that he has been concerned about all day long is possibly, just possibly, burning that right rear tire off the car just a little bit too much, but he likes it a little bit free coming up off the corner, guys.
You can definitely see that car is just a little bit on the free side, but you just don't want one shoving the nose here.
Brian Vickers with 11 starts in this 2009 season. Stay with us.
Hey, right quick, where you guys giving blood at September the 11th? I know you're going to give some, Larry, right?
I will.
Okay.
You just tell me where to go, and I'll handle it.
I'll
go with you.
Yeah.
All right, let's go together. Steve Burns, I bet he'll go
I've
too.
got in my wallet, I've got my blood donor card.
Yeah, it's a good thing. This looks like a good thing, too, guys. Brad Keselowski over there talking to his teammate Ryan Newman, driving the 5 car.
Newman is 11th quickest. He's run a total of 11 laps. Brad is 21st quickest. He's run a total of 10 laps. Ryan will be driving for JR Motorsports one more race after this, and it'll actually be at Bristol next week. See Brad Coleman in his 20 car. Been running a few races when Joey Logano has not been driving it. Right now he's 15th quickest. He's run a total of 14 laps. You know, 1 year ago is when he made his Sprint Cup Series debut here driving that number 96 Hall of Fame car. Ran all day long, ended up finishing 38th. I probably saw, I won't say funny, one of the most interesting things I believe I've ever seen to do with a race car earlier this week. Brad does a lot of testing for Joe Gibbs Racing, especially out at the Desert Proving Grounds, the GM Desert Proving Grounds in Arizona. And on one of the runs out there, he absolutely just completely centered in the grill of that race car a coyote. And I saw pictures, and the coyote was stuck right in the grill of the car. He said he absolutely thought the world had ended for just a minute.
Wow.
Wendy, how in the world can you add on that?
Well, I was just going to say, you know, I had heard stories from the Gibbs team about that incident, and it's gone around the garage. Unfortunately, the email got sent around in the photos, which I don't care to look at ever again in my life. The visual was bad enough. But according to the team, it took several hours, and it actually lost a lot of testing time for them because it took a very long time to get the car cleaned up and get back out there. And actually, when it came back at the shop, it still, you know, needed some cleaning up to do.
It was quite the mess, the picture I saw.
I got news for you, boys. I think I'm kind of a tough guy, but you wouldn't have got me to clean that mess up.
Mr. Elk Hunter.
There's between shooting an elk and trying to get a coyote out of the front grill of a race car. They don't strain real well through the radiators.
Stop it.
You know, Brad has had a good bit of success here in the ARCA series. He has 2 ARCA starts here, and both of them were top 5 finishes.
Jeff Hammond doing a very good Kenny Wallace impersonation.
No.
I don't know if that was a very good one. It was an impersonation.
Good. I liked
The better?
it. Good too. Yeah, I liked it.
Yeah.
Right now, Kenny is 39th quickest. Talked to crew chief Chris Rice this morning. You know, they've been having some awfully good runs. Had a top 10 finish at Iowa, at ORP. Actually had a good run going at Watkins Glen and had a penalty on pit road, but Chris just felt like that this racetrack, they might be just a little down on power, and he said, you know, if we can just come out of here with a top 20 finish, we're pretty happy. But Bob, I think you're with someone that will not be happy with just a top 20 finish.
No, definitely not happy, especially here in Michigan. You know, he's green on his car, but he's blue on his head with the hat, the Michigan hat, and in his heart. But let's talk about you talking with the 5 car, Ryan Newman, your teammate up here, and what did he tell you about what's going on with his car as compared to yours?
Well, our cars are set up a little different. He's got a little different package in his, so just trying to compare them. You know, when you got 2 different cars, sometimes it's advantageous to have 2 different packages. So this is one of my weaker tracks. It seems like I really never have got a hold of Michigan, so you know, it's really cool to have a teammate like Ryan, who seems to really run well here, especially in the nationwide cars, and just trying to get all the feedback I can from him. And it looks like he's got a good Fastenal Chevrolet, and I think I've got a good GoDaddy.com Chevrolet. So we can run good in race mode, but I'm not exactly real good on the short runs, and Ryan's really good on the short runs like always, so I'm trying to learn something from him.
Let's talk about learning, going back and forth from the Sprint Cup Series to here. You reported the engine was flat at first, and the team thought, well, maybe he's just used to that power over there on the Cup side. How about you? You agree with it?
Well, I feel bad for the engine tuners when you go from the Cup car to the nationwide car, because you naturally just you pick on them, but it still doesn't quite sound right. So we've got a couple things we're working on trying to get it right. We've got a little different engine package this week, trying to have something for them boys, but we'll keep working on it. I'm sure we'll get it right.
And of course, he's still supporting the Wolverines, and the Wolverines in football, Steve, you know they've had a tough time as of late.
Yeah, but Coach Rodriguez is there. He's going to turn things around.
Just got 2 words to say: Appalachian State.
Yeah, you don't go there. But you know, he talks about his
big
teammate.
house.
Talk about his teammate right quick, Ryan Newman. He's got 2 wins up here in the Nationwide deal driving for Penske Racing. So good guy to go kind of consult with if you want to learn something about Michigan. The racetrack, I mean.
Bet Newman's not a Wolverine fan.
No. He's a Boilermaker. Ha ha. Back to Michigan after this. Wednesday night on Speed, Ron Hornaday looks to continue to rewrite the history books as he goes for a record 6th consecutive win. Don't miss the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series live from Bristol Wednesday night at 8.
I wouldn't bet against him.
Can you imagine trying to win 6th consecutive anything?
Richard Petty did it, so why can't Ron Hornaday?
Saying it's a
It's
remarkable
tough.
streak.
It really is.
Kyle Busch has run a total of 22 laps, still 2nd quickest on the board. Brian Vickers still leading the practice as he's done pretty much since it opened.
Bob Dillner.
Well, you know, we talked about the 18 bunch trying to pace themselves during this practice session. Well, they really haven't paced themselves that much. He's done 24 laps on this racetrack, and that's right up there ranking amongst the top of the leaders as far as laps run in this practice session. But Kyle Busch has a busy day. We're talking about being on the air for 6 hours. Kyle Busch started out with a Sprint Cup Series practice. Now the Nationwide, he'll qualify for the Sprint Cup car, come back here for the final practice for the Nationwide, and then he'll actually head over to Toledo, Ohio to run his own super late model tonight at Toledo Speedway in a CRA Super Series race. So Kyle Busch pretty busy this weekend here in Michigan.
Now, I'm going to dive in here. There's been a lot of question, should he be trying to race both the Nationwide Series full-time and the Sprint Cup Series? And you know what? I applaud him for doing that. I applaud him for stepping out there and running a few NASCAR Camping World Truck Series races. I do not agree with the weekend that you've got here. It's hot. He's got 250 miles tomorrow. He's got 400 miles on Sunday. I do not agree with going and running a late model race tonight. I think that may be too far outside the box.
In terms of what, conditioning?
Just everything, you know, mentally and physically. Because like Bob just pointed out, we're on the air for 6 hours today. He's in that race car almost the entire time that we're on the air for the most part. I think somewhere you have, you know, you love to race, and I applaud that, because I love, if we did 10 hours of television today, I would enjoy doing it. But somewhere you've got to say, you know what, I got to be smart here too.
He does have a lot at stake this weekend and over the next 4 hours. And oh, by the way, you are doing 10 hours of TV today.
Yeah, because we do have trackside, and then I will be taping NASCAR Performance,
which
airs twice this weekend.
this week.
6 o'clock, I think it was.
6 o'clock tomorrow night.
Yeah.
9:30 a.m. Sunday morning.
All right.
I'm going to DVR both of them.
That's what I do.
Kevin Harvick in the 33 car. Wasn't that long ago we saw his race car up on scales. Harvick working on his 15th lap of practice, 10th overall. He heads down pit lane.
Has a win here back in 2003, and in 2009 has 2 poles, including Watkins Glen last week, and the win at Bristol, his very first win driving for Kevin Harvick Incorporated in the Nationwide Series.
33 NASCAR Nationwide Series wins for the driver of the 33 car. Let's go back to Bob.
David Reagan outside his number 6 machine here in the NASCAR Nationwide Series garage, and the crew up underneath. They're going to go out for a couple more runs as the 2 machine revs its motor by us. But how's it going so far?
Our discount tire Ford's pretty fast. Mike Kelly and everyone's done a nice job preparing this car. You know, only racing here once a year. You got one shot to get a win for Ford and for Jack Roush. So, you know, coming to Michigan's always a special time for our Nationwide team. And Our discount tire Ford is good. Our Cup car's fast. So it's been a good weekend so far, and it's still early.
David Reagan, all smiles so far, and that's pretty good to see because he's had a tough year, guys.
He has indeed, Bob.
And Jack Roush did get the Truck Series win, the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series win here in June. Colin Brown driving for Jack Roush got his first career win in the Truck Series.
And they just keep right on rolling along, don't they?
There you see it, 20 wins here at Michigan International Speedway between the top 3 series.
Let's go back to Wendy.
Well, Michael Waltrip is not here in the Nationwide Garage, but I do know that Michael Waltrip is twittering during this practice. So I'll give you an update, Mikey, on Trevor Bayne right now in this practice session. He doesn't have any grip on both 1 and 2 on and off the throttle. It gets a little free on him. It's free rolling, but he said then it gets real tight. So they're making some adjustments before Trevor Bayne goes back out there. He is currently 9th in this practice session.
He's run a total of 22 laps in this 99 car. And he, I think you may have mentioned earlier, but he'll join our little Friday night party at Bristol next week on trackside.
With David Rudiman.
And I hear Richard Childress may drop by.
And they're all confirmed, Eric.
I like it when they're confirmed. I can go ahead and work on my notes during this commercial break.
Stay with us. Brad Coleman, 15th overall. His 20 car. 2 top 10 finishes this year and a top 5. Picked up the top 5 at Gateway outside of St. Louis.
We were talking about this Coyote incident out there at the GM Desert Proving Ground. Nope, I'm not going to let it go because in the garage area, he has now taken on a new name, a new nickname, the Roadrunner. Get it? Got the Coyote.
I got it.
Meep, meep, meep.
The front of that car was Coyote Ugly.
Yes, it was, to say the least.
Wendy.
Well, the 5 car of Ryan Newman has made his way back into the garage area. The most important problem right now, the alternator could be going bad. It's down to 10.2 volts, so they're going to check that out right now for Newman. But he is a little bit loose getting in and good from the center off. We'll continue to watch that problem with the 5, potential problem with the 5 alternator.
And once again, Bob touched on this earlier. I think we need to make sure that everyone understands what the tire rule and situation is in the Nationwide Series. You have 6 sets of tires total for the 2 days, for the 2 practice sessions to qualify and to race. But to get that 6th set, you have to turn a set of practice tires in. So actually, when you think about the set of tires on the car to qualify and start the race, you'll have only 4 sets of tires in the pits. Now, you can put those tires on and off, on and off. They don't care, but that's all you have to work with. And I know talking to some of the crew chiefs, as I mentioned earlier, this is a very different right side tire from the Sprint Cup Series. They said, honestly, this tire just seems like it just goes forever and ever and ever. But I think the variable is how hot it is and how much it'll start to lose grip. It doesn't really lose speed. It just starts to lose grip.
David Rudiman's in the 10 car this weekend, making his 7th Nationwide Series start of 2009.
I told you I was hanging out around Jerry Baxter in that group today, along with David Rudiman, and then talking about nicknames. You know what his nickname is, don't you?
The Beak.
The Beak. Kind of hard on the boy, ain't they?
Yes, they are. Yes, they are. Right now, David is 27th quickest. He's run a total of 16 laps. We've had all but 1 car practice. 50 of the 51 has been out there as we are getting to about, what do we got? Maybe about
maybe 20 more minutes.
20, 30 more minutes in this practice session.
Hour 20 minutes into about an hour and 45-minute practice. And the other thing was they tried to get Rudiman to go with Frank LeCoeur and Marcus Ambrose over to that dirt track and run the sprint car, which you know that David grew up running a lot of dirt. He chickened out. He wouldn't go.
The man they call Beak chickened out.
That's what I said.
Okie dokie, Wendy.
I would say the heat is getting to you guys, but I know the AC is cranked up in there. David Rudiman out on the racetrack right now has said he has a little bit too much drive in the center. It's a little bit too tight for him from the center, from the throttle off, and the entry tends to give up grip on him. Now they made a breaker spring change the last time before this run. One thing I do want to note, David Rudiman's team kept that fan going in the car in between the practice session. The exhaust had gotten some fumes in that car. David Rudeman requesting that fan in there. It's a little bit warm here today in Michigan.
Maybe
It is that.
Maybe that's what's wrong with Hammond, too many fumes.
I know exactly what my problem is. Too many years of working with Darrell.
Oh,
Can you understand that?
I can.
You've worked very close with him in certain projects.
Yep.
And Larry, you've been up there in the booth with him for about the last 9 years.
Going on 10.
Would you think that I have a legitimate reason for being the way that I am?
You worked with him full seasons.
Yeah.
I'm only with him
365
basically a
days
third
a
of
year.
season.
Yep.
Well, anyhow, while we're trying to figure out Hammond's state of mind,
Or lack of.
Michael
Yeah, good
Annette
luck.
in the 15 car, he is 19th quickest. He's run a total of 13 laps. Michael comes in here 15th in the Nationwide Series points.
My friends, my buddies.
That's what we're here for.
Yep. I'm glad we got Ian up here in the booth with us today. At least I feel like I got somebody on my side, or at least got my back.
You know, we were talking about a car a while ago that seemed to be bouncing up and down. Obviously, this racetrack is getting rougher and rougher and rougher. I was just watching that 15 car a while ago going off into turn 1 at the end of the front straightaway. Just seemed like it just bouncing around an awful lot as we watch Brendan Gaughan in the 62 car. He's 22nd quickest right now.
Well, remember, Larry, we talked about the seams that have been filled up. I think that's where a lot of that's coming from. And again, with this racetrack getting hot like it is, you know that it's going to expand, and those gaps, those seams are going to seem a lot more abrupt, a lot rougher than what it would normally be.
You know, we got quite the little Robestus Rookie of the Year points battle going on between Brendan Gaughan and Justin Allgaier. In fact, they're only separated by 11 points. Justin is leading, but remember, it's the 16 best finishes you have of the 35 races in the Nationwide Series. There's our Robestus Rookie of the Year points leader.
Stay with us here in Michigan. Down on the pit road, you see the NASCAR Sprint Cup Series cars being gridded. Qualifying headed your way in about 30 minutes, 3:40 Eastern officially. Sprint Cup Series qualifying will begin.
Probably see speeds at over 200 miles an hour getting off into turn 1 when that qualifying session rolls off.
And we'll have that for you here on Speed. We're on board with Justin Allgaier. Bob Dillner has an update.
Well, the 12 is 12th on the timing charts right now here during this practice session for the NASCAR Nationwide Series. Justin Allgaier has been pretty happy with this car the entire session. They're basically just really trying little things. Some stop out of the right front, some stop in the right front, a rubber in the left rear, rubber out of the left rear. So right now it's all about balance, not necessarily speed for Justin Allgaier on this racetrack. They will attempt some qualifying runs or mock qualifying runs a little later on when we get to the final practice, which of course you can see here live on Speedway later on.
Hey, Bob, right quick, what does the weather seem like down there to you? Just looking at the clouds that are starting to build, and we know we're not going to worry about rain, but it's putting a little bit of shade on the racetrack. Has it gotten cooler?
Thank goodness. Yes, it finally has gotten cooler. It's been hot and humid all day, but like you said, Hollywood, the clouds have kind of put a shadow over this racetrack, and it is getting a little bit cooler, so you could see some speeds pick up, right?
That's what I'm looking for, and especially with the Sprint Cup qualifying coming up. You know, we talk a lot about the luck of the draw, but you know, if the track will cool off a little bit, it might help some of the guys going out earlier, but still, if it cools down, the guys that go later will definitely have a faster racetrack.
You know, Justin, he is the 2008 ARCA REMAX Series champion. Was not even, I won't say he wasn't in the hunt going into the final race of the year, but when the top two in the points took each other out, he was right there to capitalize and cash in.
28-year-old Matt Carter, the son of Travis Carter, former crew chief and team owner in the Sprint Cup Series.
Right now, Matt is 46th quickest of the 50 cars that's been out on the racetrack to practice during this session.
Got a chance to talk to his dad, Travis. We worked together at Junior Johnson's and known him for quite a while now, but pretty high on his son. He said, you know, Jeff, I don't want to be bragging on my boy, but he's got a good feel for a race car, and he's getting an opportunity now to kind of showcase some of his talent. That also he's really very diligent about going over there and working on that race car. So you got a race car driver that not only can turn the wheel, but he can turn the wrenches.
Kenny Wallace, 28 car, right now still 39th quickest. Kenny actually comes in here 12th in the Nationwide Series points. Here that this team will be looking for a sponsor for 2010, that right now the U.S. Border Patrol plan is that they will not be returning as the primary sponsor of this car.
And when he goes to the road course in Montreal, fans are his sponsor because of Border Patrol. Border Patrol, well, it's outside the borders of the
Doesn't
United
make
States.
sense, does it?
No.
Kenny, one of the cars that's locked into the top 30. It's the top 30 in owner points in the Nationwide Series. Looking at our go homers, by far Paul Menard the fastest in the 98 car, 5th quickest, and then the next go homer behind him would be Ryan Newman in the 5 car, that's 11th.
Kenny has 11 NASCAR Nationwide Series starts here. Does not have a top 10 finish. There's Brad Coleman again in the 20, Justin Lofton in the 14. You heard Wendy talk about Lofton having a lot of success in the ARCA REMAX Series, 23 years old, out of Westmoreland, California. Actually won an ARCA race here at Michigan 2008.
And in the June race this past year, a couple of months ago, he was leading and had an ignition problem. And Wendy also mentioned 3 wins. He's won the last 2 ARCA races at Berlin, and then I think the race that you and Kyle Petty did up at Pocono a couple of weeks ago or so.
He was very impressive.
A little battle going on here between him and Brad Coleman. Like Lofton trying to figure out how to get by Brad and working the inside and the outside. Somebody needs to tell both of them, it's just practice, boys. Careful.
Justin is actually in pretty good shape. Right now he's 30th quickest. He's about the 9th quickest go home car.
And Larry, you had a great point as we came on the air for this practice. Over 50 cars, a huge car count here for the Nationwide Series race.
And it's, you know, I just think it's a very convenient race. It's a convenient race for a lot of the Sprint Cup Series teams and drivers to run. You know, you're here close to Motor City. I just think there's a lot of things that lines up as the reason that we have a lot of teams and a lot of drivers and cars show up for this race.
Oh, let's go back to the very opening deal that Steve was talking to me about. It's a fun racetrack for these guys. It is a wide open type deal. You can run high, you can run low. The racetrack is pretty forgiving for the most part. So, you know, I think there's a lot of guys that want to come up here and run this racetrack to get the experience and to have a good time.
15 minutes left in this practice as we watch Kevin LePage, the veteran, Shelburne, Vermont.
He's one of those pole winners here in the Nationwide Series. Actually set on the pole back in 2002. Kevin is 38th quickest, has actually only run a total of 3 laps.
Best finish here, Nationwide Series competition. He was 2nd in 1996.
He's one of those cars that will have to qualify their way in tomorrow. And, you know, in Sprint Cup Series qualifying that we have here just shortly, especially the top 35, it'll be 1 lap and done. You know, you pretty much know the grip's going to go away in lap 2. You're going to take those cars up as solid as you can for downforce and drag reduction. They're going to start to get warm. Could be the contrary in the Nationwide Series because we've talked about down on horsepower from Sprint Cup, a momentum type of a racetrack. I'd say a lot of these cars will probably run the 2nd lap in qualifying tomorrow, and a lot of them may very well pick up on that 2nd lap just because they're not completely up to speed when they take the green flag.
Right about that, Larry. I think we can watch tomorrow the big difference between the way they leave pit road, getting their speed up down the back straightaway, and really attacking turn 3, coming to take the green.
Jason White driving a car fielded by Armando Fitz. White really looking for speed, 49th out of 50 drivers in this practice.
Yeah, his fast lap is a 42.36. He needs to find probably 3/4 of a second, if not a little bit more, to even feel close to being safe.
Morgan Shepherd still trying to find his way into victory lane. Toyota's atop the speed and timing chart. Veteran Jason Keller from South Carolina, 13th fastest right now in his Ford. He has 14 starts here at Michigan. 2 top 10s, his best finishes here on this 2-mile super speedway.
He just keeps inching closer and closer, though, to 500 career starts in the Nationwide Series. Tomorrow will be his 480th with 11 poles and 10 wins in the series.
All-time leader in career starts. Still 3 Toyotas leading the way. Vickers, Kyle Busch, and Denny Hamlin. Then it's 2 Fords, Reagan and Menard. Jeff Burton in the fastest Chevrolet. He's 6th overall.
This car right here is pretty quick. Terry Cook in that 91 car, he's 19th quickest. He's only run a total of 6 laps so far.
Wendy has an update on Denny Hamlin.
Denny Hamlin 3rd on this practice session, and he is done for the Nationwide car. It needs to roll from the center a little bit later. He's not able to keep that speed rolling, which is his biggest concern. It's a little bit tight. He's just going to talk about other things that he felt with that 11 Nationwide car, but with the 11 Cup car, that's a whole nother story. His Cup engineer, Wheels, Mike Wheeler from the 11 Cup side, is over here to talk to Denny Hamlin. I said, what, are you lost? Why are you over here? He said, well, I don't want to waste any time. I want to talk to Denny about the Cup car, give us time to think about what we want to do to that Cup car. And it's a lot better to find Denny than for Denny to find them a lot of times. So Wheels is made his way over here to the Nationwide garage to discuss some things with that Cup cars. Bob?
Well, Wendy, Kevin Harvick has finally found the handle on this 33 machine. Remember, we told you early in this practice, he said the car was junk. Well, now it's pretty good, just a tad loose coming up off the corner. And crew chiefs, listen to these changes. They changed the slugs in the right front upper A-arm, and they moved the truck arms 3 holes down to get this car into the racetrack.
Well, the geometry change they made on the front end, that's trying to make the front bite. You heard him say earlier the car's on top of the racetrack. It means it's not gripping. So they've made all the geometry changes in the front end to try to make the front bite. And then when you drop those trailing arms down at the front, at the trailing arm cross member, that helps the rear end bite and get that forward bite on acceleration off the corners.
Make the front hook up, let the back follow it. Sounds like they've got the right kind of combination, at least working for Kevin. At least at the moment, he's 10th quickest.
Dennis Setzer in the 96 car, longtime competitor in the NASCAR Camping World Truck Series. Right now, he's 28th quickest.
And just realized, Larry, looking at the entry list, that car is fielded by Bob Keselowski.
Okay, because I think also maybe Brian drives that car every once in a while, which is Brad's brother. David Reagan in the 6 car, still 4th quickest. The 52 car,
Mike Wallace.
Mike Wallace.
About 7 minutes left in this practice, and as Bob said at the top of this practice session, a lot of practice for the NASCAR Nationwide Series teams. This session, 1 hour and 45 minutes. Then they have a second session after NASCAR Sprint Cup qualifying, which comes up here shortly at the bottom of the hour.
As you see there, Mike is 32nd quickest. He's run a total of 7 laps.
Kevin Hamlin aboard the 31 car.
Kevin still, I talked to him just last week.
We saw him in the
Watkins
elevator.
Glen, yeah, and he, you know, he's still a developmental and does a lot of testing for Earnhardt Ganassi Racing. Makes a few starts when he can in the Nationwide Series.
He's 30 years old, guys, but Steve, you're the one that's got the master with the wordsmith. Why don't you tell us what the name of his hometown is?
Well, I know he's from the Pacific Northwest.
He's from Washington, but how do you, would you say that? Snohomish?
Oh, Snohomish.
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 Yeah. Snohomish.
Okay.
Not to be confused with Enumclaw, Washington.
Exactly. Sounds like something either that was Eskimo or Indian name, maybe.
Snohomish.
Snohomish.
Bob Dillner.
Jason Leffler just climbed out of his Great Clips car here, and I want to know, 17th quick, is that really, realistic of how well this car is now performing?
It's performing a lot better now. The first run of the day on new tires, we weren't wide open. The throttle wasn't wide open. So Austin Mullins, my motor tuner, is trying to convince me that not being wide open is not that big a deal. But someone needs to talk to him. So about 200 RPM difference. So once we fixed that, we already wore the good off the tires and the car wasn't quite right, but now it's pretty good. Great Clips camera is really good.
All right, Jason Leffler likes his car here. May have actually even changed intake manifolds during this practice session just to figure out what the power problem was, guys.
All right, thank you, Bob. Closing moments of this NASCAR Nationwide Series practice just ahead. Stay with us here on Speed. Yeah, back at Michigan International Speedway, closing moments. NASCAR Nationwide Series practice. Don't forget, at the bottom of the hour, back to John Roberts. Quick update in between this practice and NASCAR Sprint Cup Series qualifying. Greg Biffle, Clint Boyer, and David Rudiman, the first 3 drivers to qualify for the Carfax 400.
Just looking at the number of laps run in this practice session, riding with Stephen Wallace here in the 66 car. He's run a total of 29 laps, but John West Townley looks like he's run more than anybody at 44 laps total in this practice as we're closing in on just the last few minutes of this practice.
What if I send us up a little bit of that 5-hour energy?
We need 6-hour energy.
If we can get through 5, I think I can take it through the other. I do know he's from St. Louis, Missouri. I can say that. I appreciate that clarification.
Snohomish?
Snohomish.
J.C. Stout in the 19 car. He's out of Castle, New York. 25 years old.
A decent practice session right now. He's 42nd quickest.
He made the race at Lowe's back in May. He actually missed the show at Chicago and Kentucky. This year he's run a couple of NASCAR Camping World Truck Series races.
He run 29 laps in this practice session.
Car that's owned by he and his dad. Talked to them earlier today, and they were a little concerned at the car count here, knowing that they were going to have to really step it up if they were going to make this show. And right now, again, this is just practice, but he would not get in as he's the 4th slowest of the go-home cars.
Again, they qualified tomorrow morning. I believe that starts at 10:35. Yes, it does, here on Speed.
So 8 cars will be going home, and just looking, the slowest 8 as far as the go-homers: Jason White, Derek Cope, Johnny Chapman, J.C. Stout, and then Morgan Shepherd, Kevin LePage, Curtis Davis, and Austin Dillon. Just right there on the fringe, but this is just practice, not qualifying.
Veteran NASCAR Nationwide Series driver Mark Green, the 49. He's 22nd, very productive practice.
In the 4th quickest go-home car. That is Mike Bliss in the 87 car, right there.
Sure glad we got that right.
8 minutes into this, 16 minutes into this practice, that 87 car hit the wall.
And the flags are out, and really the only incident we had in that practice for the most part, I know we had Michael McDowell get sideways and kind of spin off turn 2, was that situation with Mike Bliss.
Chase Miller aboard the 47 car this weekend for Tad Geschichter.
And that's actually the team that won the race last week at Watkins Glen with Marcos Ambrose.
So the quickest in this practice is Brian Vickers, Toyotas, atop the leaderboard, led by Vickers, then Kyle Busch and Denny Hamlin. Then the Fords of David Reagan and Paul Menard. As we take a look at the top 10, how about Trevor Bayne, the 18-year-old in there in the 9th position?
He's just bad fast. That's all you can say about that young man. 18 years old, he's not scared.
He's been bad fast about every time they've had him at the racetrack this year.
Yes, he has.
Have we mentioned he's going to be on trackside next week?
We did.
Okay,
but
good.
it wouldn't hurt to mention it again.
With David Rudiman.
And Richard Childress.
Right.
Did we mention that actually Casey Kane's going to drop by our show tonight?
I don't think we have mentioned that.
He will drop by. Say hello to his teammate Elliott Sadler.
Don't forget, Sprint Cup qualifying follows here in just a few minutes. We'll take a short break and rejoin John Roberts down at the speed stage. And when Sprint Cup Series qualifying begins, it's Greg Biffle, Clint Boyer, David Rudiman, Bobby Labonte, and John Andretti. Stay with us. We got you covered. 6 hours, then a short break, then it's trackside at 7. Stay with us here on Speed. Let's go now to John Roberts.